Welcome back. Today we are going to learn about security technologies. So far we have been discussing about infrastructure for e-business. In this context we have learnt about 4 major infrastructures. One is network, another then is your hardware and software, and finally the database technologies. We got a brief overview of all this. Now when this internet become commercialized, at that point of time the business houses adopting internet as it is for displaying their website etc. was fine, but subsequently when there was a need for transferring secure material and specifically for online payments, security started playing a major role. In fact, all these e-business transactions are based on this security ideas, unless otherwise there would have been no security. This e-business would not have been adopted the way it is adopted today. So, today in this security category, in the first lecture we are going to learn about various types of security and threats, attacks that happen in the internet. So, there are 6 categories which play crucial security categories which play a crucial role in secure e-business transactions. So, first one is your legitimate use. So, this legitimate use is about identification, authentication and authorization. By identification we mean identifying some entity correctly. For example, when you log in into a system, you provide your password and you get identified, and by authentication we mean this is a level up the identification where the identity gets verified. Then there is authorization. Authorization again, once you are identified and authenticated, then you are authorized to conduct certain transactions. So, these 3 things are actually related in some way. To cite one example, let us say you are trying to log in into your banking system and you provide your username and password, you got identified, then whether you are the right person at this end, understanding that is actually authentication. Then you identified and was authenticated to use bank's system does not mean that you will be allowed to view everybody else's bank account. No, you are authorized only to see your part of the bank account. So, this is the difference between identification, authentication and authorization. Then comes the term confidentiality. This is about protecting the content of a message or data transmitted over the internet from unauthorized people who are not supposed to see it. Then the third one is actually integrity. So, this is about preventing the data from being modified by an attacker while transmitting, when it is supposed to be done while transmitting the data over the internet. Then next category is availability. So, this is about making the system available when it is needed. So, which means if by chance because of any attack a part of the system is not usable, a part of the system is disrupted, then another it should not be disrupting the entire system. This is about availability. Then next category is non-repudiation. This non-repudiation is about preventing the sender of a message from denying having sent it. Then the last one is about auditing and traceability. this is about after something has happened, after some security breach has happened, it is about examining the transactions once again to understand because of what such kind of security breach happened. So, this is about auditing the system. So, some of these important categories we are going to now describe in detail. So, first one is authentication. So, this is a process by which two parties involved in a dialogue are given a guarantee that they are indeed interacting with whom they are interacting, which means suppose you are connecting to your bank, you are identified using your login and password. What about the fact that the entity to which you are connecting is actually your bank? It may be somebody else has created a website which is exactly looking like that of the bank, and it is created with the purpose to get your username and password. So, the moment you enter into that site, you give your username and password, it is recorded. So, how do you know that you are actually interacting with your bank? So, this is about authentication. So, the authentication is the process of confirming the identity of the interacting party. So, it can happen in two ways. First of all, the client may sometimes authenticate the server, and sometimes the server has to authenticate the client. So, in for an example, consider the case of server authentication. Suppose you are purchasing a book and you are giving your payment details in the book server. So, what about the fact that you are the right person who is actually purchasing the you are the right person who is actually whether it is the right server to which you are connecting, because you are providing your payment information, you are giving many of the details, your address, etc. So, what about the fact that you are actually connecting to the right bookstore? Then the second one is your client authentication. So, in this the server authenticates whether it is interacting with the right client or not. Now, in case of a banking system, let us say bank has to authenticate. In case of a credit card system, the company has to authenticate whether it is connecting with the right client or not. Then next category is your confidentiality. It is about protecting the content of a message or data while being transmitted over the internet from unauthorized people. See, we have already discussed about the internet, and we know that internet is a very insecure medium, and while transmitting the data, what happens? The data goes at it as it is. Only thing is that in order to have this end to end connectivity and routing it through the to the right host, you follow certain protocol, this TCP IP protocol in particular. So, during this protocol, the application data is broken into small packets, and with each packet some header information is added. So, there is no provision for securing this data, which means anybody who has the idea of how this data is being how this various header information is being added to the data. So, that person if connects to your network can take your packet, can remove all kind of header information, get the application data, then because your TCP maintains the sequence number, it can go through the sequence number and connect those small packets to know about your data. So, therefore, there has to be some mechanism in which the data that you send is represented in some other way. So, this process is called encryption. So, it is for example, when you are sending your credit card information during the while it gets transmitted over the internet, you have to be encrypting that credit card information. Then next category is your data integrity. It is about preventing the data being modified by an attacker while it is sent over the internet. So, just now I told you that the data that you send is insecure, only thing is that it is broken into small packets and header informations are added. Now, what is there in the header information? It is your IP address, it is the sequence number. In case of in IP header, your IP address both of the host, both the hosts, the source and the destination, it is there. In case of TCP, it is the sequence number, acknowledgement number, all those stuffs are there. So, anybody can actually delete or modify this data. It can modify the application data, it can modify this header data as well. For example, suppose somebody modifies your the host address to which you are sending the packet. So, which means that packet will be diverted elsewhere and it will not reach the final host. So, there will be packet loss in the process. So, the attacks that can that come under this data integrity can be either active, where the packets gets modified, or it can be passive. In case of a passive attacker who may be your business competitor or some enemy in that sense, will actually be listening to all your packets, it will be removing the packet header information, then it can take those small chunks of data, some small chunks of application data, combine it together to make, to understand what kind of documents you might be sending. So, these types of active attack, so these types of attack under integrity can be of two types. One is sniffing, another is IP spoofing. Now, what about is sniffing? This is what I was telling you. In case of let us try reminding you about how the processing happen at each layer. This application data, when you send, let us say you are sending a big file, that file will be made into small parts called data packets. So, these packets, every layer of TCP IP protocol stack, some header will be added, and while it goes from one host to the other, every part can be read by somebody who is in between. For example, here the routers can read your IP header and know in which direction the data has to go. So, anybody who is there in between installs a device or writes some network program can actually read this information, which passes through a number of entities when it starts from one host and finally receives its destination. Internet is a insecure medium and it is not owned by anybody. So, the data packet can move in any direction they like. So, if you look at this IP address header, there is this source address and this is your destination address. This is what I was telling you. So, your source address and destination address can be tampered. Now, in case of sniffing, a packet sniffer program which is running in the network or some network attached device like that of router receives all the data link layer frames passing through the device network interface and tries removing the application data apart and reads. So, it is about sniffing, dog sniffs and finds out, it is just like that. Then about IP spoofing, it is about modifying the, it is against, there will be some kind of network program which will be not only reading the content of the message that you are sending, it will also modify this IP address and so that the packets will not reach the destination. Then next is the availability. By availability we mean the system should be made available, should the client at any point of time should be able to connect to the system when the system is up, but there are certain attack because of which it is not possible. It is about creating extra legitimate workload that the server cannot handle. This is because of partially open TCP connection. To understand it further, let us look, let us try reviewing what we learned during TCP. TCP, that is a transmission control protocol, is a connection oriented protocol, and in order to send the data and maintain send the data, it first contact the server and perform some kind of handshaking. This during this handshaking, couple of things happen. You send your sequence number and receive acknowledgement number. The sequence number and acknowledgement number are very much part of your TCP header. So, therefore, just like your IP header somebody was reading and removing your IP addresses, somebody can also read, attacker can also read your sequence number and acknowledgement number. So, during the three-way handshake process, if the host 1 wants to connect to host 2, first it will be sending some kind of message where this it will be letting the host 2 know the synchronization sequence number. So, now this particular data segment that will be sent to the host 2, host 2 has to now acknowledge that it has received this synchronization number. So, in step 2 of this handshaking procedure, the host 2 now responds to host 1 with a acknowledgement and some kind of and some kind of sequence bit set. This host 2's acknowledgement segment does two work. First, it acknowledges host 1's synchronization number segment, then it informs host 1 that the sequence number informs the host 1 from which sequence number it will start taking the data. So, in the third step, your TCP, what TCP will be doing, the host 1 who is supposed to send the data will send the acknowledgement as well as the data. So, which means before the data is actually sent, two more steps happen. First, some synchronization number is sent to host 2, then host 2 acknowledges that it has received a number and it tells that from which sequence number it will now start getting the data. So, at the end of this, the second step, the host 2 actually waits for the host 1 to receive this acknowledgement as well as the data. So, now the question is, if the host 1 who is supposed to send the data does not do it, then what happens? The host 2 will keep waiting at least for some time, and the resources at host 2, which is server here and host 1 possibly is a client or another server who is trying to send the data, the resources of host 2 are limited. By resources we mean here the number of connection that it can parallelly handle at a time. So, therefore, if somebody at host 1 writes a program so that it simply sends this it simply performs these first two steps of TCP and not the third step, then all the connections available at host 2 will be exhausted and all the connections will be waiting for the data, and this process will if the program continuously runs, as soon as one of the point is available at host 2, it is again it is again attacked by it is again used by the connection is again used by the attacker, and the attacker continues not sending with the data. So, it continues in a loop. So, all the connections at the host 2 are keeps getting exhausted. So, this particular attack is called denial of service attack. Then the next category is your non-repudiation. So, it is an attribute of a secure system that prevents the sender of a message from denying having sent it. For example, suppose you place an order, you just send through from your internet based internet account, banking account, you give some order to the bank to transfer some fund to somebody else's account. What if you say that you have not given this instruction? Can you do it? No, because banks have made sufficient provisions so that the moment you say that you have not given this instruction, they can provide you evidence that it is not the case, you have actually given. So, it is extremely important in case of e-commerce transactions and payment transactions that this non-repudiation is practiced. So, with this we finish our lecture on various security categories. Thank you very much.